because people are still joining in. Cool. So this is what is lined up for today. This we are going to have a recap of last sessions. We'll come to network-based attack, network security, networking basics, firewall IDS, DMZ, and quiz. Right. So we'll cover all these topics, and I think that would take a fair amount of time that we have. So let's go through a quick recap so that you recollect whatever we have discussed, right? So one thing, if I want to remember for your lifetime from security side, would be this slide: confidentiality, integrity, availability. Whenever you are designing any product application, always think from CIA perspective that how are you ensuring confidentiality? What needs to be kept confidential, right? What needs to be what data's integrity needs to be intact? What services of the system that you're designing should be available all the time, right? So confidentiality is all about keeping sensitive data secured and preventing it from unauthorized access, more of a reading or accessing the data, right? Integrity is all about modification of the data, and availability is availability of the system. The system should not go down. It should be resilient against denial of service attacks. It should not be that with like using one computer, somebody sending 10,000 requests per minute, and the site says that I'm not accessible or I'm no longer available, right? So it should have availability. It should scale to the requirements, and then you should have detection mechanism to detect that you are under attack, right? So that's all about availability. Integrity is that whatever is your data, you should be allowed to modify it out if the system permits or the software permits. But anybody else able to modify your data, for example, on any e-commerce website, we all have our addresses saved. If I'm able to kind of modify or tweak around that address, somebody else address, then that's a problem. If I'm able to do it for my account, that's perfectly fine. So that's what is ensuring integrity is rightly in place. And if somebody is able to see all my data, my purchase history, my address, my mobile number, then confidentiality get impacted. So confidentiality is all about seeing, viewing somebody else data. Integrity is all about modifying somebody else data. Availability is availability of the system. System should work, system should be functional. And these concepts could be applied anywhere in life, right? I mean, for example, if you're using a lift in the place where you're staying, or when you go out at, at certain mall or anywhere where you're using the lift has certain internal mechanism, its own internal control. Those all should be kept protected, and it should not be shared with the external people. Suppose that it has a key to open the door when it gets stuck or jammed. That key should be kept protected. It should not be available with everybody. If somebody is able to tamper the program of the lift, and when you press fifth floor, it takes you to ground floor, that's where integrity gets impacted, right? That should be allowed to be done by the authorized people, right? And they'll not be doing such uh, kind of meaningless activities. They would be utilizing those capabilities or the privileges that they have for the betterment of or for maintenance of the lift. Similarly, if lift goes down because somebody just pressed all the buttons, and there is a sequence of steps via which the lift crashes out, right? So that's where availability gets impacted. So always remember CIA throughout your life. Whenever you're working on software, whether you're working on cybersecurity or not, try to utilize CIA principles to develop or design softwares that are resilient against attack. Access control frameworks: authentication, authorization, accounting. The authentication is who you are. Authorization is all about what privileges you are carrying, right? So if you are boarding a aeroplane, right, with a boarding pass and your ID card, identity card tells who you are. Boarding pass contains your entitlement, that which seat is entitled to you, whether you're going to sit in first class, business class, or economy, what meal is authorized to you. That is what is authorization, or the business or the boarding pass that you're carrying, right? And accounting is keeping a log and tracking, like CCTVs or like people kind of scanning your boarding pass and monitoring. So that's all about accounting. Principle of least privilege. So give as minimal privileges to anybody to do the operation that they are required to do. Do not open up the permissions, right? If somebody's job is just to kind of order books from a library, issue books from a library, he or she should not be allowed to add new books, because that's a job of a librarian or an administrator, right? So keep the privileges roles well defined, right? And keep it as minimal. RBAC, RBAC is a role-based access control that is used largely in the enterprises to control the privilege level of employees. Okay. Spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. So STRIDE is another model that I want you to remember, right? Apply STRIDE principle. Spoofing is all about spoofing somebody else's identity. The moment I start using credit card and your ID card and start behaving you, that's where spoofing comes into picture. Tampering is again modification of the data. The integrity gets impacted, right? That's all about spoofing, right? I create a fake Facebook profile with all your profile pictures and all your pictures that were publicly accessible and start sending friend requests to your friends saying that my other account is compromised. This is my new account. Please accept a friend request. A lot of people will fall prey to that prank. They may not reach out to you and they will assume that I'm you. Tampering is modification of the data, right? So repudiation is I doing something and denying that I did it out, right? So it's more for forensic also, for logging and monitoring also, and for detection also. Suppose that I create a fake profile and somebody files a police complaint against me, the cyber cell analyzes, and that it finds out from the Facebook logs and data that from my IP address that account was created. I cannot refute that I have not done that out because there's a whole trace of activity that I'm doing. So I cannot repudiate that. So non-repudiation should be there. Repudiation is I being able to say no, that I didn't do it, and there is no ability to prove that I did it out. Non-repudiation is system having the ability, like Facebook maintaining all the logs, traces that from which account, from which IP, from which city all the account was created, what was the geographical location for that. With all that information, I cannot deny that it was not me. Information disclosure, sensitive information getting leaked. So that again is aligned with CIA confidentiality, right? So keeping sensitive information protected. These denial of service more to do with the availability, that whatever is the application that is available, and it doesn't deny service to anybody. It could be antivirus software where a malware finds a loophole in that and it stops its service, and now you are denied to use the service. It could be the lift, that somebody takes some steps and via which they are blocking people from using the lift. It could be any web application where I constantly start sending a lot of requests to it, block other users from using it, and maybe bringing their services down. Or suppose that Flipkart or Amazon are running a campaign at 12 noon where somebody is going to get some voucher if they kind of answer some question. So I answer that question at the same time. I ensure that the service becomes slow down as soon as I have answered, so that nobody else is able to answer, so that I become the winner. So again, that comes under denial of service to the other user. Elevation of privileges. I'm allowed to kind of issue book from an online library, but other than issuing the book, I can kind of block other users, delete their account by using some hack approaches in the library management software, or act like a librarian, or restart the library's management web application. So all those comes under elevation of privilege, because my privilege is only to issue the book, right? So that's more of a elevation of privilege. So gaining higher privilege from lower, that comes under elevation of privileges. Risk evaluation. So always remember that whenever you get a lot of vulnerability, you have to prioritize them. And there are two prime factors that play a role. One is likelihood. How likely is that attack going to happen? And what is the impact? How bad is the impact of that attack, right? Based on those, you will kind of deduce and the priority of a given vulnerability that you have to fix. At any time, suppose that you get 10 vulnerabilities to fix, you have to prioritize them, right? So you will use likelihood and impact as the two key parameters to kind of prioritize that. There are other factors that we have discussed in past, so I'll not go through all of them. Threat, vulnerability, exploit, all and risk are all four different terms, right? Threat refers to something going wrong. it's not that it is going wrong. It might be going wrong. It might be that there are enough checks or mitigations that nothing goes wrong, right? Vulnerability is all about a weakness or gap in a security program. So threat is likelihood. Vulnerability is a proven issue or a bug in a software that can be exploited. And exploit is a POC via which a given vulnerability can be exploited, right? So there could be multiple ways to exploit a vulnerability. Somebody writes a POC or a script. That exact POC could be called as an exploit. And risk is the overall loss or damage because of exploitation that takes place of an vulnerability in a system. We also discussed in the last session about cryptography, so symmetric versus asymmetric cryptography. Symmetric is also called as shared key cryptography because the same key is shared for encrypting and decrypting, right? So suppose that I encrypt an information and send it to you using symmetric key cryptography, I have to pass down the key as well to you so that you can decrypt it out. Whereas when it comes to asymmetric cryptography, there are two keys, public and private, and if I have to send the information to you, I'll use your public key to encrypt the data and you will use your own private key to decrypt the data. So asymmetric is public key cryptography. It uses two keys. The speed of symmetric key is faster, asymmetric key is slower, right? And symmetric key algorithm is used for routine data transmission where speed is required, whereas asymmetric is used in scenarios where secure key exchange is necessary without a prior secure communication channel, right? So you can see that both of them have their own pros and cons, and they kind of complement each other, right? And for like whole web communication, HTTPS communication, symmetric and asymmetric key both together are used. For the initial key exchange, asymmetric key cryptography is used. Once the session key is exchanged, beyond that, the whole communication happens using symmetric key cryptography that does the whole encryption, right? So why we used symmetric key beyond that? Because speed is required for the whole browsing activity that you're doing, and that's why symmetric key cryptography is used. So this is the flow that we covered. As you can see that in this one, the same key is being used. The key is same for encryption and decryption, right? And when an attacker sees the text in between, as he's not having the key, he just sees the encrypted message and he cannot make sense out of it, right? So that's more of a symmetric key cryptography, also called as shared key cryptography. Some of the examples are AES, 3DS, Blowfish. These are some of the challenges. Key distribution, because I mean, if I decide to send a message to you now using a symmetric key cryptography, right? I need to find out ways to pass down the key also to you. So key distribution becomes a challenge, because if I send the key along and somebody gets the key in between also, like an attacker, if he sees this ciphertext and he sees the key, he would be able to decrypt it out. So it goes with the assumption that the key exchange has already happened. We met at some point in time in past, and I said that, hey, I'm you going to use this key for all the future communication. Keep it safe with you, and whenever I send an encrypted message, that would be encrypted using symmetric key cryptography, and you can use this key to decrypt it out. Scalability, right? So the quadratic growth in the number of required keys with additional, there are a huge number of keys for the whole symmetric cryptography exchange, right? So if it is humans are doing it, it becomes complex to manage the key. Key can get compromised, and then you have to rotate the key, and lack of non-repudiation. Nobody can see that I mean, there is no repudiation here, right? Because when I send a message, the same message can be sent by Bob also, right? So it doesn't come that I only encrypted that message, and Bob can say I never received the message because there is no further check on that. And the key can be compromised also. So suppose that attacker has got the key, he can send the same message to Bob, and I do not have a way to get a confirmation whether it really came from Alice. In asymmetric key cryptography, each user have two pairs of key, right? Private key and the public key. So you can see Bob and Alice both are having key. Now in this case, when Alice has to send a message to Bob, she will use the public key of Bob because that is publicly available. That's why the name is public key. And she will encrypt it and send the message to Bob. Bob will use his private key to decrypt the message. These are the algorithm, RSA, Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve. Performance speed, we already discussed that's a challenge, right? And the key management, it's not as big challenge as possible as in the case of symmetric key cryptography, because here the number of keys that is required, say for 10 user pairs, would be 10 into 9 by 2, which would be 45, right? Whereas in this case, it would be in the case of asymmetric cryptography, it would be just like 20, because each users would have two keys, and with that they can communicate with each other. Whereas with symmetric cryptography, the larger the number of users, the larger the number of the keys, and it will keep growing exponentially. But the key management would still here also would be a problem, because the users are expected to keep their private key protected. We also discussed about hashing. So hashing is a process used in computing to convert input data of any size. So hashing is a bit different from normal encryption decryption. It uses cryptographic concepts, but what it does, it converts a given string or a file of a fixed into a output that is of fixed length, right? But unique, right? The moment you make a slight change also in the text, the output would no longer be same, right? So I have used MD5 to generate this string, this hash for hello world. At your end also, if you utilize MD5, you will get the same string, right? But if I add exclamation mark here at the end of hello world, this hash would not no longer be same. It will change. So the key points of hashing is it is of fixed size. It is efficient because it is very fast, and you cannot reverse once you have hashed it. You can do a hash comparison by creating a dictionary of a known values and then compare that. Okay, can this be the string? Can this be the string? But you cannot reverse. Encryption can be reversed, but it hashes only one way. It generates unique value. There are hash collision that happens with some of the outdated algorithms like MD5. Even SHA-1 is broken, but SHA-1 is still considered as safe to be used for larger purpose that we see in the industry. Common usage of hashing is data integrity check, password storage. My password that I'm keeping, that is secret, that is sensitive. So for any service that I'm using on web, even the web owner or the website owner should not be knowing the password. So they generally hash it so that they cannot reverse it out, right? It can be used for data retrievals, right? It enhances quick data lookup in structures like hash tables, improving efficiency as well. Now we also discussed about the digital signature. So, right, why it is used. So this is an example how to show that digital signature in action, right? So for for case of digital signature, right, Alice would be signing a document. She's not encrypting it out. She would be signing the document to prove that it's coming from her. So non-repudiation gets honored here as part of the digital signature. It also ensures integrity, because nobody can tamper. The moment they tamper, digital signature also will get tampered, right? So she will use her private key to sign a document. Just like in your check, you put your signature, that is your private signature. Similarly, while using digital signature, Alice would be using her private key to sign it and send it to anybody who needs to verify the data. The key and the message would be passed to a digital signature algorithm, and then it will generate a signature. The signature will be appended to the message, and then the same will go to Bob. And Bob will be able to utilize public key of Alice to see whether signature is valid or not. So here Bob's private and public key doesn't come into picture, because it's all about signing. It is not about encryption, right? And once he passes the public key of Alice, he would be able to check whether it is a valid signature or not. If the signature is valid, that means the message came from Alice. So concern of Bob that Alice would not be able to deny sending the message is getting solved, because it's coming signed from her side. And it also ascertains authenticity, that the message repudiation it has ensured. At the same time, it also ensures authenticity and integrity. If somebody tampers change password to change not password, the signature will no longer match, because this is coming, the whole signature is tied up with the message, right? You pass the message along with the key to the digital signature generation algorithm. The moment this is tampered, this will come as a question mark, and signature would no longer be valid. Cool. So this is all from the past that we have covered. I just did a quick recap. Now we'll move to the network security, right? So let's understand what is distributed denial of service attack. That's one of the most popular attack, which is network based, right? As you can see in this example, that there is a store and it is giving, say, food to people, right, at a cheaper rate. Suppose that they are giving burgers for $1. There are so many people that are queued up and they are not able to serve anybody. These might be people that has been arranged by the competitors who want their shop to be shut down. So they are just kind of occupying that place but not buying anything. Genuine buyer are not able to reach out, right? So this is more of a denial of service in real life. Now, coming back to the software world, distributed denial of attack is somewhat similar, but it happens on the internet. In the scenario, the shop is a website or an online service, and the door is the way people connect to the website, right? So suppose that you log into an e-commerce website to purchase something, you're not able to log in because it is undergoing a denial of service attack and it is not having enough mitigations to prevent that attack from happening. So during DOS, a large number of computers, often controlled by someone with bad intentions, are used to send huge amount of traffic to the website all at once. So that's in nutshell what is denial of service attack. Now, large number of computers, it can be a computer belonging to any of us. If our computers are compromised, right? If it is having a malware, those malwares can make our computer attack somebody else on the behest of the controller who's controlling those malware sitting on our systems, right? So it's not generally all the system that are part of a denial of service attack. They are from bad people. It might be from naive people. It might be from good people as well, who do not know that their systems are being used in doing such bad activities. What is botnet? So again, the topic that we're discussing, right? That the botnet is a group of computers that can take up command from the attacker and start sending bombarding requests to a given server. So this is what is the example that you can see here, right? All these systems may not directly be owned by the attacker. In many cases, it is just compromised systems which are live, and I'm giving a session right away, and suppose that my system is compromised, right? In the background, the attacker would be using my system to send requests to the victim, so, and I would not be knowing as well, right? So that's why it is important to keep our system protected. So this is a bit on the botnet, and whatever you see here are the bots, and he's an attacker, and this is the target server that he's trying to target. He he would, through a malware, he will install a command and control channel. He will pass down a command to these computers saying that send a get request to this server, or send this request, put a push a call command to this server, and all of them will start sending, and that way the victim server or the target server will get overwhelmed with several requests. Now, what is network security? Network security refers to any activity taken to protect the availability of the network. So it largely again focuses on the availability, resiliency of the network, right? And it also, confidentiality and integrity of data is also important. Suppose that when a server is under denial of service attack, it starts behaving weirdly and starts leaking some of the data from its database, right? That could be again something where confidentiality will get impacted. Whenever we are exchanging data at the network layer, it should be kind of confidential. It should be kept protected. Remember, internet is an untrusted place. Though we share a lot of things there, but again, whatever goes in internet, it can never be trusted. It always remains in the internet. Even if you delete it out, it is quite likely that somebody has taken a screenshot of it or dump of it. The organization's network is a trusted zone. So, I mean, whatever organization you're going to work or working currently, their internal enterprise network is a trusted zone. But outside that, whatever activity happens, that's kind of a uh, untrusted zone. Data entering the internet, trusted zone from the internet, untrusted zone must be scrutinized, right? So we cannot keep our internal infrastructure. I work for an organization, right? And there are a lot of internal website. It could be like leave management website. It could be travel management. It could be expense management. It could be the intranet. It could be the internal document, SharePoint, Confluence. All those could be internal those websites or services that we are running, right? That should not be publicly exposed because that contains sensitive data, right? So those are supposed to be internal, kept internal. So there should be a mechanism to prevent certain data from entering the network at the same time leaving the network also. So now we are going to talk about firewall and intrusion detection system to understand what role do they play, right? So before going to firewall, let's understand networking basics, right? As you can see that there is a person who is on the network on the internet, and he or she is browsing. And how does the data exchange happen, right? When you're interacting at the application layer because you're finally using an application, right? So you pass down some data. Suppose that you're making a login using Google Chrome as a browser to one of the online services, right? And you pass down your credentials. That those credentials go to the transport layer, and then they go to the network layer, and then it finally travels through the internet and reaches to the server. There also it will reach to the network layer, then to the transport layer, and then to the application layer, and then the server will see the data and then act on it. So this is a basic mechanism, and how the flow happens. You can see that when it goes to the transport layer will add its own headers to the data. Network layer will add its own headers to the data, and then the packets will flow using internet to the server, the target, wherever the packets are destined for, right? And then the network layer will get rid of the network layer packets. It will get the data, whatever network layer headers we're trying to pass to the network layer. Then that same thing will happen at the transport layer, and finally application layer data will get the raw data that started from the sender side, and finally the raw data becomes available at the server end, right? Typically, the packet contains information like source IP, destination IP, from where it is originating, what is the port on the source side, what is the destination port, and like what kind of request it is, right? It is a HTTP GET request, as you can see. So this is a basic web application communication exchange that is depicted here in this slide. Now, moving on to the firewall, right? A firewall is a network security system that monitors, controls incoming and outgoing network traffic based on the predefined security rules that are available. It typically establishes a barrier between a trusted network and an untrusted network. So you remember earlier we discussed that all the internal website and intranet, that is considered as trusted zone of an organization. Outside that, you need to have internet connectivity as well. That is considered as untrusted zone. So the firewall can sit between trusted zone and untrusted zone, and it can monitor, control the traffic. If it sees that there is some anomaly or something that is not allowed is happening, it can block as well. So you can see here that there is a local area network and there is a wide area network. So let's assume that this is trusted zone, and this is wide area network, more of a internet. So there is a firewall sitting in between. There are various type of firewalls. I have just kind of put forward some of the example here. Software versus hardware firewall. So firewall can either be software or hardware, though it's best to have both, right? A software firewall is a program installed on each computer. So if you go and check in your computer, there would be a firewall that is available that can regulate traffic through port number and application. So it will largely work within your host, right? The system that you're having, and it can control the traffic to the different application. Suppose that you do not want uh, Chrome to get access to any specific port, then you can just go ahead and define that in your firewall that deny access of Chrome to this particular port, right? I'm just giving an example. While a physical firewall is a piece of equipment installed between your network and gateway. So that becomes more of a physical device that sits between your network and the gateway. Then there are host based versus network based firewall. A firewall that is placed between a computer and a network is called as a host-based firewall. So suppose that the system that I'm having, right? If I keep a firewall between the system and the network with which it is connecting, or the router with which it is connecting, then that will be more of a host-based firewall. A firewall that is sitting between two networks. So suppose that I'm using two networks at home. I am running two different LANs because I'm using two different internet providers services, right? So if I create a firewall between both the networks, then that's more of a network-based firewall. Then we have proxy versus web application firewall. So proxy firewall is an intermediary between users and the internet, right? So it would just route all the traffic through the proxy, and proxy can drop a packet, can allow a packet. So that's what is a proxy based firewall. There are a lot of security tools that act like a proxy firewall. Burp Suite can be an example. Fiddler to some extent can be an example. That also could be a proxy, considered as a proxy. And then we have a web application firewall, security barriers specifically designed to monitor, filter, and block harmful traffic to and from a web application by analyzing HTTP traffic, right? So web application firewall largely is being heard in terms of cloud applications as well, but it is typically used for monitoring a web server, right? Whole traffic coming around it, ensuring that it is not coming, a malicious traffic is not coming, and kind of keeping that application the web service protected from any attack. So that's a typical web application firewall. So all these firewalls have their own utility, but the goal is same, that their purpose is to protect from malicious traffic and control any unwanted communication. Now, here is a use case of firewall. As you can see that there is an intranet. Let's assume that you're working for an organization called as XYZ Corp, right? This is the intranet of XYZ Corp, which is not exposed to public. It is meant for internal employees, right? And then you have internet, right? So if some request comes for any intranet website, right, the firewall should be blocking that out. So you can see that incoming, any request that is coming on port, block incoming HTTP traffic to the server. So that's what will prevent anybody on the internet to access the intranet application. So that's the job of firewall that it will be doing. Apart from controlling access to the internal sites, a firewall is used to block several types of attack, like DDoS attack, or enforce an organization network policy. Example, employees not allowed to access internet website. So if you do not want your employees to access certain type of website, it could be more of a reels. If you do not want them to access, you can define a rule in firewall. If you do not want them to access certain categories of website, let's say gambling, right, then you can block that out, those kind of traffic, using the firewall as well. Now, what is DMZ? So let's understand what is DMZ. We understood what is firewall. Firewall is a device that will be sitting between trusted zone and untrusted zone to control the traffic and to keep the trusted zone protected from any attack that comes from the untrusted zone. What is DMZ? DMZ is a secure area between an organization internal network and the external internet that helps protect the internal network by allowing limited access to exposed services like web servers. So let's take an example, XYZ Corp that you're working for. So it has its own intranet that is meant for consumption by its own internal employee. Now, XYZ Corp within their own network is also having a website called as xyz.com that is open for all everybody, right? That is meant to be open for everybody, right? So that website should be accessible to everybody so that everybody can know what all services we are providing as a XYZ organization, and we can have our customers who can purchase through XYZ Corporation. So that's more of a website that is in our network, but it is exposed to the external world. To make that happen, we use DMZ, right? We will create a DMZ that will be exposed to the internet, but at the same time it will be having a firewall which will allow the traffic to the DMZ website. At the same time, keep the intranet applications protected, which are internal or private, right? So the example is narrated here. An organization may have a public website, for example, infosys.com. If the public website is server behind the firewall, if we just keep it behind this firewall, as you are seeing here, people from internet would not be able to access because of the rule 2 that we have defined here. It will block any incoming traffic, right? So we cannot use this basic firewall that we have. So for that reason, we create a DMZ zone that will kind of allow access to the website that we have for the organization, at the same time protecting the internal application. So this is the example. As you can see, that the public website is in a DMZ, and it is between two firewall A and firewall B, while firewall B will cater to the traffic that is going to the public website, right? Firewall A will ensure that any internet traffic that is reaching here is kind of getting blocked, right? So any access from the internet will get honored here for the public website. But if the request is for an intranet application, say workday.com or a Confluence or a SharePoint, then firewall A is going to block that out. So this is the concept of DMZ. It stands for dematerialized zone, right? And the whole purpose is to allow access to some of the internal websites that are in our internal network that are meant to be publicly exposed and publicly available. Now we'll move to intrusion detection system, right? So an IDS is similar to firewall, but it will raise an alarm. Firewall will simply act. It will kind of take action, block the traffic, do not allow traffic or allow the traffic. That kind of activities it can do. Whereas IDS is more of a system that can raise an alarm, inform that you are undergoing a DOS attack, block this specific IP. So all those action, it will do that out. So it can detect a suspicious activity as well. It can find anomalies, and it can kind of send an alert so that you can act on time before the service goes down or kind of gets overwhelmed. So it complements a firewall or other network defenses by doing a deeper analysis on network traffic to identify patterns that match. Now, again, IDS is of two types. One is signature based and other is anomaly based. Signature based is like predefined rule that if you see these known signatures, based on that, you will be acting it out. Anomaly is based on a pattern, right? Based on a baseline that is defined, that this is all is normal activity, right? I getting 10 user logins every day on my website, that's more of a normal activity. All of a sudden, within 1 minute, I get 50,000 login requests. That's not a normal activity. So that's based on a baseline, that's based on having a fixed anomaly, and based on that, it will be acting. Whereas signature is like well-defined signatures, based on that, it will be acting it out. What is false positive? So false positive in typical cybersecurity terms is a detection where you have wrongly detected something genuine as a malicious activity or a virus or a malware. So that's what is called as false positive, right? Suppose that you have an antivirus running on your system and it detects chrome.exe as a malware, and it starts killing that out. And chrome.exe that you have is a genuine software, it is not a malware. So that detection would be called as a false positive detection. Even IDS can detect a false positive when it feels that some activity that was happening, that is a malicious activity, right? For example, annually you run a uh, say online conference or a virtual seminar. On that specific day, there are a lot of users that visit your website, and that increases your traffic on that particular day, right? And IDS thinks that it is something suspicious that is happening, and it raises an alarm. That would be called as a false positive, because it's just a usual activity that is taking place, but it is not usual compared to any other day. It happens once in a year. What is an IPS? So IDS is detection system, IPS is prevention system, right? So IPS not only will detect, it will act also, and it will try to prevent. It will not only raise an alarm, but at the same time it will take some action that you have already defined. Suppose that all of a sudden you start getting rogue packets from a given IP. You can tell IPS that whenever such thing happens from a given IP, block all its requests and do not honor its traffic, right? So that's what IPS can do it now. So this was on the IPS and IDS side. I'll just take a pause before going to the quiz for any questions that you have. If you want me to go back to any of the previous slides that we have, do let me know. Right from the beginning, I can go back and we can talk on that. And you can put your questions in the chat as well. Now, there are a lot of other tools also for network security, like Nmap can be used for network scanning. You can have Kali Linux installed on your system that you have, and try tools like Nessus, Tenable, Nmap for scanning the network. So that can show you what ports are open, what services are running. It can do a basic fingerprinting of your entire network and the systems in network, and give you results based on that. Any questions on whatever we discussed before we move to quiz? Could you please go to the slide after the network basics? Okay, sure. Yeah, this is the firewall one. Sure. Yeah, so that's a good question, Madhuri. And Kushal, I've gone back to the slide. You can either post your question or unmute yourself and ask the question. So, Madhuri, to answer your question, I mean, all three should be used together to kind of have a holistic protection, but it depends on the budgeting as well, right? So if you are a startup and you have a limited budget, so then you might just be not be able to afford IDS or IPS. You might just be using a basic firewall to kind of have a bare minimal protection, and then the team that is monitoring firewall would be required to do or monitor things a lot manually and act on it. Whereas if you're using IDS or IPS, you have the advantages that it would not require a lot of manual intervention, and things will happen on their own. So it all depends on the cost. How much can you afford? The best would be to use all three together. And there are other controls also, like network access control within your network also, what you want to allow your users, right? So all these are other devices also uh, that are available and generally deployed in a typical enterprise environment. Madhuri, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Sandeep, it is very much answered. It is more towards the cost. Am I right?
Yes, more towards the cost, but if you can afford, go through everything. I mean, go pick up all the protections that you have.
Okay, thank you.
How differently does the physical and software firewall work? See, the purpose of both of them is altogether different. When it is a physical firewall that is sitting outside your system, whereas the software firewall that we are talking about, it is all within the same system, right? So it can block traffic to an application, control what you are allowing specific ports on your system to be open for which application, right? So that's the basic rule of a software firewall. It cannot protect another system on the network, right? For protecting that, you would have to have a kind of a physical firewall that is deployed in the network. So typically, if you ask me, organization to larger extent do not use software firewall for for getting lot of protection. They will always rely on a physical firewall that is sitting in the network, because they can have certain rules defined on your laptop that you're using as part of the organization, but that to larger extent is very minimal protection that it can provide, unless you kind of get too obsessed and spend a lot of time in managing all those rules. It is not easy to run those firewalls, unless you very well know that, okay, this port I'm just blocking for everybody. Then it might become so that your system itself become unusable, because a lot of things are getting blocked, and you would end up spending a lot of time in trying to understand why things are getting blocked on your system. So software firewall is used typically, but it doesn't give lot protection to larger extent. Any other questions on this?
Hi, Sandeep. This is Kushala. I just have a quick question here.
Yeah, go ahead, Kushal.
So you said we have firewalls, right? So we do have software and hardware firewalls. However, there is LAN, wireless LAN. We have metropolitan. I mean, the restriction of access is towards the metro man. We have multiple levels, right? So let's say the firewall which we are providing, the extent of its application, is it different based on which area of network we are using? Or is it like, the same can be applied for a smaller one as well as a large scale one? Is that feasible as well? Or do we have to choose applications accordingly? Or, the software must be chosen based on where we are applying this?
Sure. So if you're talking about the software firewall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, its impact, all its rule are only limited to this system. It is, and then the network traffic has already reached to your system, and then that software firewall decides what to do and what not to do, right? So the packet that is supposed to get blocked a lot earlier has
Mm-hmm.
already arrived to your system, and then the firewall service, if it is running in your system, will apply those rules and may kind of act on it. So the software that firewall that you have on your system, it would just be applicable on the applications that you are running on the current system, not on any other system in the network, or not on any other packet that is traveling on the system. And there would be ways to bypass that also. If somebody gets to know that you're using a software firewall, there could be a lot of loopholes and ways to bypass that as well.
Thank you, Sandeep. Could you
And you
please go
can,
to
yeah,
the slide as
you can search in your start menu firewall. Windows
well?
by default will provide a firewall and see the options that it provides, but it is very limited and it will not cover everything that a network firewall will do. Suppose that you have a printer in your network, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is not running the similar kind of a software operating system that is running on our laptop. So you need to protect your printer as well in the network. So that's why it is always recommended not to larger extent rely only on the software firewall.
Oh,
Yes, go ahead. Which slide should I go back to?
the previous one, network basics. I think you had an additional point. Yeah, this one. Thank you so much. That's good.
Okay, cool. Any other questions before we jump to quiz? So basically, when we are not able to browse certain websites using organization system is due to software firewall installed on the system. Uh, it could be due to multiple things, right? So software firewall very well can block things, but I don't think any organization would be doing that out. Typically, what happens in the organization setup is that everything that you do, every browsing that you do, that goes through a proxy, right? Web gateway kind of a proxy, and there it rejects or block the traffic. So it's not, in majority of the cases, it would not be from the software firewall. It would be for a web gateway proxy that is kind of routing all the traffic from employees laptop to the proxy, and there they will be applying the rules, and via that they can monitor whatever you are doing. So that also can very well get gets monitored.
Sandeep,
But it, yeah,
there is
go
a
ahead.
slide firewall solution. So in that there are two firewalls. One is for internal traffic, another is pointing to the internet. So what are these two firewalls out
Sure.
of the categories?
Okay, so I can talk on that. So you can see this is a basic setup, right? I'll go to the DMZ one also. So this is all internal website on the left side, on the right side, it is all internet, open to everybody. The internal network of an organization is well protected. Within the internal network, we have our own website also, right? Suppose that I open a company and I call it as say san.com that I'm running in my internal network here. I want that to be available to the external world. But if I'm putting this firewall, any traffic from the internet will kind of get blocked. It will not be accessible to the external world because all the intranet and internal applications are blocked. So for that reason, we are using two firewalls. This firewall will kind of protect the DMZ or the public website that I have. This is still my internal network, but it is not behind the first firewall that will block all traffic coming from the internet for accessing those websites. This website is unique because this is my own public website, which is hosted on my internal network, right? So to ensure that my public website is accessible to public and my private websites, which is meant for my employees, are kept protected, we use two firewalls. And this zone is called as demilitarized DMZ zone. You might have heard the word DMZ. This is the reason why we call it as DMZ zone. So this is protected,
Yeah.
but this is still accessible to the internet.
So in this case, the sites which are available in DMZ zone, these sites will be resolving as an external IP when we try to resolve in a DNS resolution for that. Is it?
Yes. So these would be accessible and this would get resolved. These would have like public domain IPs. Suppose that internally you are running intranet san.intranet.org, and this is not registered because this is an internal website. You don't have to register that out. So this would resolve here internally, but externally if somebody tries to resolve it out and try to access that, firewall will block it out.
Yeah. Yeah, because like sometimes we see there are internal hosted sites, but when we try to resolve, it is resolving. Some sites which are not resolving and it will display like it can't be resolved. So here I think those sites which are resolving, it is the TNZ. Which are not resolving, it is firewall is blocking. That is it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And firewall will to some extent protect this also, but it will not block traffic. Suppose that it sees something like a DOS attack that is happening, so in those cases it will try to prevent it out. So we need a firewall still even to protect this public website, but the purpose here is slightly different from firewall A. Firewall B purpose is slightly different.
Okay.
Okay, so Mansi's question, can we see the firewall configuration, how to do it? Will that be covered in future classes? Okay, so see, I mean, each of the firewall that you have, right? The network one or the physical one. If we run a class here, it cannot be remotely shared, so it would not be possible to cover that out. But if you want to see firewall here, let me see if my organization allows me to access firewall and network protection. So this is a Windows Defender firewall setting. Let me see if I can see that out. Right. So you can see inbound rules are there. This is for the SAR. I hope my firewall screen and configuration is visible, right? You can see this out, or you still see only the slide. Can somebody confirm that you can
We
see the
can see your slide
only
slide.
slide? You're not seeing this the firewall screen, right?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, here you can inbound rule, outbound rule. So this is for incoming, this is for the outgoing traffic. You can create a click on new rule. So you can play around with this. I don't want to play around because I'm running this session at the moment, so I don't want to block any unnecessary traffic that is happening, right? You can pick up the program and based on that, you can define the port and other things. But it's not that complicated. You can just play around by going through here and there would be a lot of tutorials available on YouTube to kind of configure it out. But this is as simple as that. Click on new rule. This is for the inbound, and again, you can go through the programs, whether it is for all program or specific program. Put the program path. If you want to put a rule for Google Chrome, which application you want to put, you can put that out and go ahead and put it out, right? And it will give you examples also how you have to do it out. I'm not planned to go deeper in this, so I'll not go there because that would take time and it might impact our connectivity as well. And this is my office laptop, so I've never done anything like that. They might kind of block my connection itself if I'm trying to do something. Cool. Let me see. What are the other question? What are the important networking tools that we should have hands-on experience with? Okay, so Nmap, you should get it's basically available. Nessus is on the same lines. I think it is also called as Tenable now. It has got a new name. Tenable. Okay. And Wireshark is a network tool, I'll say. That is more to see the whole traffic that exchange that happens. So I think to start with, these are the tools that you should be knowing and learning. Then there would be tools for flooding attack like UDP flood, TCP flood. These are tools which you can kind of use for doing a flood attack or fuzz testing. UDP flood. So this is more of an offensive tool. Peach fuzzer, you can use it for fuzzing. But again, you should not be using any offensive tool without having a prior permission. If you want to learn these tools, you can create your own network by using virtual machine or using virtual box that comes freely, right? So virtual box is a software. Okay, not this one. You can install VirtualBox freely, and then you can kind of host Kali Linux virtual machine and other virtual machine. You can see in this example, I have Metasploitable and Kali Linux, two of them are configured. All these sessions, if I start conducting, it will go for 3 or 4 hours, right? But you can do it at your own end. You just need confidence and you just need to have the curiosity to try things out, right? So you should be able to do this out. And for learning the network tools, I think Kali Linux and Metasploitable, these two combinations would be good thing to start with. I can pass down some links on this and some tutorials. You can go through that and learn on this. So what will happen that you will create a network that is internal to your own host machine. So this is my laptop. Within this laptop, I'll create a virtual network and I'll run all the assessment on that, right? So you can have a separate network configuration for these. You can see that these will have NAT configuration network if I go to, right? So NAT is the configuration that I'm using. So if you have never used VirtualBox in past, I'll say that get Kali Linux VM, get Metasploitable VM. Firstly, understand the virtual box configuration by going through certain tutorials that are available on YouTube, and whichever has the more number of views, right? That becomes a good way to judge that whether the tutorial is helpful or not. And once you have learned that, then start learning on the Kali Linux and Metasploitable. So Kali Linux becomes a VM that has a lot of tools, and Metasploitable is a VM that is vulnerable, that you need to attack, right? This will have a separate IP, this will have a separate IP, right? So you can have this setup created more as a lab for learning the network security tools and gaining more confidence on that. I'll take a pause for any question on this. And I'll check the time as well. Yeah, we still have 30 minutes. I wanted to keep this session light for this interaction only so that you people kind of know how you can take forward the journey beyond me. Yeah, Nessus is not free, but if you install Kali Linux, you will get Nmap as freely available. So get Kali Linux, and I think it will have a version of Nessus also available there. A free version would be available. So Kali Linux becomes something that I'll recommend you to install because it is an arsenal of tools that are already available, pre-installed on that. And how to kind of get it running. You don't need to install on entire laptop. Get VirtualBox, If you're not familiar with VirtualBox concept, read about it, understand it. It's more of a running a operating system or within your own laptop, another operating system, without impacting anything other than the disk space on your actual host laptop that you're running. So this becomes my host laptop from where I'm doing the presentation. Within VirtualBox, this becomes more of a guest machine, guest VM that is running, virtual machine that is running. I use Wireshark and Nmap, tried Nessus limited version. Yeah, good, awesome. So that's good, and I mean you can explore further on that, Namrata. And whenever you get a HTTP website, Namrata, you can see the whole traffic that gets captured in Wireshark would be over plain text, and if you are passing your password to a HTTP website across the network, wherever you are running Wireshark, everything would be seen in plain text. So that's why it is told that it is recommended and it is required that any secure exchange should happen over HTTPS. Okay, so I'll move on to the quiz, and then we can have a further discussion. But please do follow these guidelines so that you can Kali Linux and VMs 2 hours in understanding that. Beyond that, everything is challenges that you can utilize, right? And you can use it for learning about the scanning, learning about reconnaissance, learning about fingerprinting. Cool. So Avneet and Alakya, could we launch the quiz now? I would request you to launch the quiz so that people can go through it. Avneet, you're there? Swati,
Yes,
are you?
Sandeep. Yes.
Could you yeah, could you launch
Sandeep, the poll has been launched.
Okay, it has been launched. I'm not able to see that out. Okay. Yeah, now I can see this. Thanks, Avni. Thanks a lot. So people, you can take some time, go through the question and pick up the choices. So Avneet, I'm not able to see how many people have already answered, but whenever you feel like majority have answered that out, you can end the poll. And for people who have already answered, if you have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat. Don't wait for that, so that we can take it up one after the other.
Sandeep, I missed what you said. Sorry, if you can just repeat.
So what I was saying, Avneet, is that if you see that enough number of people have
Yeah,
already taken.
21 people have already attempted, have participated.
Okay.
So numbers are falling in. I think we can keep it for 8 minutes.
Sure.
We are already at 7:11. So
Awesome. Yes.
another 40 seconds, we can keep it open. At 8 sharp, I'll close it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So people who have not submitted, just remember that you're barely left with 30 seconds. Try to submit. It's anonymous. We never get to know what you are attempting. And it's more from the learning that you have done today. So it's good time to test whether you have understood the concepts well or not.
Right.
And
Okay,
for people,
ladies, last 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
absolutely. And for people who have already answered, feel free to think of the question that you want to ask. Put that in the chat so that we can take it up.
Okay, I've shared the results, Sandeep.
Sure. Thanks, Avneet. So I can see the first question, everybody has given the right answer, protecting data and network operation. Awesome. Thanks a lot. What is the main intention behind DDoS attack? No, patching is not the intention, but good to see 96% of people have given the right answer, to disrupt services by overwhelming a target with traffic. What is the primary function of a firewall in network? 100% people have given the right answer. Good. Okay, so which device is specifically designed to protect web applications by inspecting HTTP traffic? So it is protect web applications by inspecting HTTP traffic, right? So it is all about web applications. So web application firewall is the right answer. 74% of people have given that. Yeah, I knew that this question people will get stuck, but that's okay. We'll clarify some concepts here. Which type of firewall is installed on individual server and monitoring incoming and outgoing network signals? So network-based firewall, host-based firewall. Good to see that majority have still given the right answer, because this is installed on individual server, right? And it has to be host-based firewall because it's on the host, the specific host it is installed. It is not in the network, but installed on the individual server. So it becomes more like it could be a physical as well, pertaining on the server, or it could be a software also. It could be either of them. It could be a physical firewall, or it could be a software one. But it is catering to the individual server or the host. So that's why it is called as host-based firewall. Where would you typically place a public facing web server in a network architecture? Inside the DMZ. So good to see you are understanding what is DMZ, right? So DMZ is a internal location within an organization infrastructure, but that needs to have public access. So you are having a separate firewall, and DMZ is typically placed between two firewalls. One is for the trusted zone firewall between the DMZ and the trusted zone, and another firewall between DMZ and the internet, right? So it is placed between two firewalls. Which IDS type uses a baseline of normal activity to detect irregularities, right? So signature based is always based on the signature, not on the baseline, right? Whereas anomaly based IDS is always on the basis of baseline. Signature is like, okay, if you get from this IP, these are bad IPs, block it out. Whereas anomaly based is based on a baseline. But this is my baseline, right? It would not be signature or a pattern, but a baseline. That you analyze, this is my normal traffic, this becomes my baseline. Anything that deviates more than 30% from my baseline, start blocking or start behaving abnormal.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm not able to see the screen. Like you're saying, it's correct and so.
So your voice was feeble. Could you just
Yes, I'm not able to see the screen where you are discussing on the quiz question.
yes, you're not
Yeah.
seeing the screen?
No, it is
Uh,
displayed for the PPT quiz time.
okay, sure. Let me just see if I can reshare my screen. I'll stop sharing and reshare. Mm, share the screen. Now the quiz time is visible. Let me launch the poll again. Okay, so I think the poll is only visible to me today. Okay, sure. I don't see a way to bring in the poll. So Avni, today my permissions are little different than usual because I was not seeing the time also for how long the poll was running, right? So I can launch the quiz question directly from the text file, and then we can talk about it. Just give me a minute. Okay. Sure. So let's talk from here, right? Avneet, would you be able to share the poll results? Because I'm not able to share that today for some reason. Is it visible to you, Avneet, the poll results? Because here it,
Sandeep, it is visible to me, the poll
okay,
result. Yeah,
okay,
29, like out of 29 participants, 23 have participated in this quiz,
okay,
79% participation.
got it. So let me, okay, now it is visible. Everyone, can you see the
Yes, I
quiz?
can.
Awesome, cool. So we'll quickly run through it. Sorry, I didn't realize that it is not visible to you because usually it is visible. So I mean, most of the cases till now that we discussed, majority have given the right answer, right? 100%, 96%, all these are the right answer. Here also 100%, this is the right answer. Web application firewall, this is the right answer. Host-based firewall, this is also the right answer. Host-based because it is individual host or a server. That's why it is host-based. Where would you typically place a public-facing web server? DMZ, we discussed on that, right? So that's the right answer. Which IDS type uses a baseline of normal activity to detect irregularity? So signature based is like you define some rules. If it matches those rules, if it matches those patterns, block it out. Uh, Anomaly is mostly based on the baseline. You define normal traffic that kind of uh, observe the normal traffic and then say that, okay, this is my normal traffic. If there is a deviation from this normal traffic from 30%, right, all of a sudden if I start getting a request, say from Uganda or Nigeria, from where I have never got a request in past, then that would kind of get blocked because it's not a normal activity or normal traffic, because it is an anomaly that is happening and it is out of baseline. So that would come into baseline. But the same can also be very well detected by signature. If you say that allow only IPs originating from India and US or Australia, that can be detected by signature based. But again, if somebody can use signature based and another organization can use anomaly based, both can provide similar coverage, but there would be certain pros and cons of both the approaches. The next question was what is primary role of IDS? So primary role is not to prevent but to detect intrusions and log information. Prevention is more of IPS responsibility, intrusion prevention system. The next question was how does an IPS differ from IDS? An IPS not only detects but also prevents the exploitation. So majority again have given the right answer. Which of the following network security controls can alert an administrator, right? So the right answer, it's a neck-to-neck competition between network firewall and anomaly-based IDS, right? 39% and 43%. The right answer again is with the majority or the people who have given with little more responses. 43% have given this. Because firewall never alerts anybody. It's just more of a device that can log information. You have to go and check. You have to kind of utilize an IDS kind of a device to IDS kind of a software or a protection to kind of monitor the firewall logs and then alert. So IDS can monitor based on the logging done by the firewall. Any questions on the quiz questions that we discussed?
Sandeep, 1 to 6, can you just repeat the correct one because I was not able to see?
Sure. So correct one for the first one is protecting data and network operations. Now it is visible, right? Screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, it's visible for me.
Awesome. What is the main intention behind DDoS attack? So it is to disrupt services by overwhelming. 96% people have answered that. What is the primary function of a firewall? To block unauthorized access while allowing authorized communication. Which device is typically designed to protect web application by inspecting HTTP traffic? Web application firewall. That's the right answer. Which type of firewall is installed on individual servers? So host-based firewall is the right answer for this. Where would you typically place a public-facing web server? Inside the DMZ, right? The DMZ is always between two firewalls. One firewall is between DMZ and internet. Another firewall is between intranet and the DMZ. There are two firewalls. So inside the DMZ is the right answer. Which IDS type uses a baseline of normal activity to detect irregularity? So it is anomaly based IDS. 43% people have given the right answer. The eighth question is what is the primary role of an IDS? To detect intrusion and log information, right? How does an IPS differ from IDS? IPS not only detects but it also prevents. And the last question was which of the following network security controls can alert an administrator if it finds unusual traffic? So the right answer is anomaly based IDS, not DMZ. DMZ is just a zone. It is not a capability, but it is more of an architecture how to kind of protect things, right? But it will not kind of alert. The question is which control can alert, right? So DMZ can be considered as a control, but it will never alert anybody. It's just a architecture to follow to expose internal website that you want, internally hosted website that needs to be publicly accessible. Cool. Any questions on the quiz?
Question number 4, if you can see one time, this WAF and proxy server.
Sure. Let me see if I have the quiz open. Which device is specifically designed to protect web applications by inspecting HTTP traffic? This is the one that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so if there was a firewall also as the answer, that would have been the right answer. But typically what happens that suppose that I'm hosting a website called as cybersecuritylearnings.com and I'm hosting a lot of my videos there, right? So that's a web application that I'm hosting. Now I want people to use my website. I want to grow the number of readers, viewers of that my website that I've hosted. But at the same time, somebody can attack my website and overwhelm with a lot of traffic. So what I'll do, I'll put a web application firewall in front of it that will protect only the web application, which is cybersecuritylearnings.com website, right? So on the server, there would be a firewall between internet and the website that I've hosted. It could be a public hosting, it could be a cloud hosting. I do not have my own network, so I'll utilize some public web server, but I'll put a web application firewall in front of it so that I get some basic protection from any DDoS attack.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? Or any other questions in general that you want to
Sir,
discuss?
I had
Yeah.
one question. So, can you please share some more material around IDF, IPF, and all? While we would find a lot of information around firewalls or proxy service, but
Okay,
it will be helpful if you can specifically provide for IDF and IPF.
got it. So if you can talk a bit that are you trying to kind of learn or understand their capabilities better? Like, is it theoretical or is it practical?
Sir, I would need more like from the reading perspective, and if
Okay.
there are any practical examples with that, that will be really, really helpful.
Awesome. So I'll just find something and pass that down to you. I've never got this question, so I do not have anything ready to hand it over to you. But IDS and IPS are generally commercial solutions, right? So I'll just see. I've never explored also that is there any free software that is available. But I'll just explore and try to get back to you on that, Sonam. I hope that's fine.
Yes, sir. Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
Sandeep, Shruti here. So I wanted to clarify question number 5. I got confused in that topic.
Sure. Yeah, and this question was to confuse people only because so that you understand and read the questions well. When you finally write the Infosys example, right? There also their questions might be lightly tricky. See, it says that what type of firewall is installed on individual servers and monitors incoming and outgoing traffic. So it talks about individual server, right? It cannot be network based firewall because it is not monitoring the network, it is just monitoring the individual. So you have to kind of apply the rule out mechanism. If I've given web application firewall as an option or just firewall as an option, then you could have opted for any of those options, and I cannot say that that's a wrong answer, but deliberately I'm not put forward that as an option. So network based firewall is ruled out, right? Proxy firewall is not possible because it's just monitoring, it's monitoring the server, not the individual laptops or the employees who are browsing. It is monitoring the individual server, right? And it's not a database firewall because it is a server. You're monitoring a server, not a database, right? And we have not learned anything on the database firewall as part of the session today. We learned about the host-based firewall, right? So you are monitoring all the traffic just for that individual server. It could be either web application firewall or it could be a host-based firewall. By host, it always means a specific host or a machine. That's the meaning of host. And here, if you read the question, it says individual servers, like one server at a time. So I
Here,
hope.
Sandeep. Thank you.
Thanks, Shruti. Okay, there is a question here. Awesome. So I don't see any further question, but I'll just briefly talk about what we are going to cover next time, and you can be coming a little prepared with that. So we will use certain tools like Bob Suite proxy, right? So you can kind of install Bob Suite Community Edition on your laptop if you have, or even Fiddler will be okay to learn basics of some of the basic traffic monitoring that we are going to do, right? So either of them should be fine. You can have that installed on your machine, Bob Suite Community Edition or Fiddler. I think Bob Suite Community Edition, if everybody's installing, that would be the best because that has more capabilities, and Fiddler is more of a vanilla proxy. It doesn't have that many security feature. So have this installed on your laptop. And if you are using an organization laptop, that also is fine. There also you can install it out. That should be fine. If you need to take permission, you can do it out. If it is your personal laptop, there also you can install it out.
Hi, Samir. I have a small question.
Yeah.
Surya here.
Yes.
See, till now we have discussed about firewalls. How far these are different from protocols like transfer control protocols, network protocols, or internet protocols? Are they same or different in their functionality?
Okay. So the protocols that you are talking about, those are more of a input for the firewall, right? So if I take example that if uh, if we take example of a vehicle that is running, right? So input to the vehicle would be petrol or diesel, that's the fuel, but final output is that it is running or it is functioning. Again, I don't think that's a proper analogy, but protocols are the way communication happens. Firewall is a way to see that communication is happening securely, and if there is any attack, it gets prevented, or it kind of stays protected. Like you are using your laptop, right? And on the laptop you're creating a lot of files that are your personal file. It could be your CV, it could be your Aadhaar card copy, PDF file, it could be your pictures of your family that you're keeping there. So that becomes more of a data, so that becomes more like a protocol, I can say. And a virus that comes, that can kind of take away all your data. It could, or a ransomware comes and that can kind of encrypt all the data, you lose all your data. You install an antivirus that prevents a ransomware from doing that out. So now forget about the ransomware. The data is the protocol, and the antivirus is the firewall that protects the data, right? So similarly, when you are doing a communication, these protocols kind of foster that communication to happen. We use TCP, UDP, these protocols for doing the communication, right? And firewall is to ensure that the communication doesn't get disrupted. It happens well.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so somebody has asked about SEM tools. So that is more for the incidents and events management tool, right? So all the logs that gets generated, that could be ingested to those tools, because manually going through those logs and then kind of raising an alert would be difficult, because again that becomes a human task. So that you can leverage SEM tools to make that job easier, and then you can integrate the ideas to kind of with the SEM tools, and then that could kind of make a quick reaction and quick alerting. Since cybersecurity is wage, I'm comfortable with Python programming. What is advice on this? Okay, so uh, yeah, so I'll answer this one from Madhuri, the question that is there. If you're comfortable with programming, Madhuri, and if you want to pursue a career in cybersecurity, I'll say that start learning these concepts, start playing around with the mock playgrounds that are available, like Metasploitable and the Kali Linux VM that I gave, right? Uh, One part of cybersecurity work is creating exploits, writing exploits to hack things to prove that there is a vulnerability. So you would very well be able to do that out. And if you get an understanding of the whole web application communication, the GET request, the POST request, the headers that gets exchanged, right? The input validation, all those for sure would help. And you can participate in bug bounties to kind of create a name and get a confidence in the security domain, right? Because cybersecurity is a field where if you are motivated enough, and even if you do not have a job, you can kind of build your profile by participating in bug bounties. And to participate in bug bounties, you can develop your understanding by using any of these mock playgrounds where you crack some of the challenges that are given there, capture the flag events, you participate in them, right? So So those are available and at your own disposal. It's just that you have to take out time and learn that out. So my recommendation would be, it's awesome that you know Python. I'll not say that it is mandatory for all the learnings in cybersecurity. It is good that you know it out. You can be good, you can leverage that for doing automation of cybersecurity things. Some activity that people may take 10 minutes to do, you can write a script to do that in say 30 seconds, 40 seconds, right? So all those for sure would help you in a way, right? But you can leverage all the available resources that are present to build up a profile and then go ahead and participate in bug bounty, gain some confidence, put forward that in your CV that I found vulnerabilities in XYZ company and I got kind of recognized, and that would look as a differentiator as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for a detailed explanation. And I'm very new for this to how the bug bounty, like where I can start up with, means the starting point or something like
Sure. So yeah, so
like a Kaggle, how anywhere like where I can get in my hands dirty with bug bounty and all
so
those
I'll
things.
Yeah, so Madhuri, what I'll recommend that you do not directly start with the bug bounty. I mean, I'm posting some bug bounty website where you can find bug bounties, but I'll not say that you start with this. You start with the playgrounds like Metasploitable, Kali Linux VM that I presented. And in the first session also, I think I had covered a lot of ground as part of that, right? So I can present that again in the next session. So because it would be a closing session, so I'll kind of walk you people through again through that, right? Let me see, where is that? Yeah, so these are some of the things from where you can learn. Let me put that in the chat itself so that you can copy it out. So these are some of the available playgrounds that you can utilize for your own learning.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Will it send this much of a data? Copy.
Sandeep, it's better you share this with me and
Sure.
I will be able to share this with the candidates. So let's
Absolutely.
not put this on the chat here. You
Sure.
can just ping it to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll cover this briefly again in the next session as well. So let me take some more questions that have come in. How far PowerShell is needed in cybersecurity? See, PowerShell is again a basic scripting language that works well on Windows. I mean, if you know it, it is good. You can automate things. If you know batch scripting, you can do things quickly. But I don't think it's mandatory to know PowerShell. Okay, so there was a question from Mansi. So signature-based ideas work on predefined rules, whereas baseline ideas compress the traffic with some kind of a normal pattern and then take action. That's correct, Mansi. You have rightly put that forward. You will create a baseline. How will you create a baseline? You will let system settle down while you're manually monitoring everything and look into everything and say that, yeah, whatever happened in last 2 days, that is baseline. Consider that as a baseline. And if you see a deviation which is more than 30% or 20%, consider it as an anomaly. Cool. Any other questions? So, Avneet, I don't see any further questions here which I've missed. Okay, could you please suggest some good courses for network security? For the network security, let me see if I recommended some certification there. Right. I mean, overall, OSCP to some extent can give you some experience in that area. Certified ethical hacker also could give, but these are certifications. And I'll try to find some freely available courses as well that I can pass it to you. Right. So that could be something that I'll see, and I'll try to share that out with you people. But if you want to gain some confidence in cybersecurity, where you are like starting from scratch, my recommendation would be go with CompTIA Security Plus, because it is not that costly certification, and at the same time it builds up your fundamentals pretty well. Unlike CH or offensive security uh, penetration testing, OSCP is more on the penetration testing side, and that will largely focus on pen testing, offensive thing, right? And CH will largely focus on the tools. The cost of these is compared to Security Plus is higher. CompTIA Security Plus would be more on the conceptual side. At the same time, it will cover some basics of the tool, but it will give you the confidence on the fundamentals. So if you're starting and if you're new to cybersecurity, that could be the first certification that you can do. Doing a certification doesn't guarantee a job. It just enhances your knowledge in the domain and the field. I had done these courses earlier, CNS certification. Yeah, so good to know this, Namrata, that yeah, you have already done these. And I think you should kind of, if you just want to refresh yourself, utilize the playgrounds that Avneet would be sharing with all of you, and then start participating in bug bounties, right? That would be something which will give you confidence. At the same time, monetary reward or recognition can also come from there.
Okay, so I feel we have reached to the end of the session, Sandeep.
Absolutely, Avneet. Yeah, we can stop here.
Yeah, so great. This was the fourth session, ladies, with Sandeep, and we have another one scheduled with him on 19th of July. Also, we will be having one session with the a leadership session, which is going to happen on 23rd of July, where Sandeep will also be there, accompanying a very senior guest who's coming in. So there'll be a great mentoring which is going to happen in that session. So I request you all to please be available. Also, the sources which have been shared by Sandeep will be sharing all that in the WhatsApp group, along with the quiz. Right, Sandeep, you have the quiz 4 also we will share with the candidates.
Absolutely, yeah. Please go ahead and share the quiz.
Yeah.
The next session would be on the application security. So we will pass down some requirements for the next session. And the 23rd session would be from an iconic woman leader. Her journey in the cybersecurity, she has worked with McAfee for close to 20 years. So yeah, I'm hoping that you people would be joining that session also and get inspired from her learnings.
Wonderful. No, how, it is going to be very wonderful to see a women leader driving such, being there on such an important role and being there on the leadership. So we all, I'm sure everybody will be looking forward for that session, Sandeep. So thank you so very much. We'll see you again on 19th of July.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Have
Thanks,
a
everyone.
lovely day ahead.
Have a good day. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.